But yeah, I'm glad everyone's doing good. I'm sorry, Meg, that you're feeling a little sicky. That's no fun.
Okay. I'm taking my mucus pills.
Your mucus.
My
Oh my
mucus
gosh,
pills.
like your echinacea.
Hey, yeah. It's just gross. It's like in my throat, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, like the phlegm. So you do like that old man cough, like
Yeah, when I was training, literally I ended a set and like I was just like like everywhere.
Hello, everybody. This episode, the gals share their own struggles with eating disorders. While they've all made great progress in their mental health, they are not trained professionals. If you are struggling with an eating disorder, please seek professional help. If you don't know where to start, you can go to nationaleatingdisorders.org. The link is in the show notes.
All right, so we're rolling into it with food discussions for today, kind of like a little past history and current navigation and things like that. So,
Hmm.
who wants to kick it off?
yeah, I'll get this party
Yeah,
started.
I was gonna say you would want to come up with this little.
Yeah, go for it, Ash.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to call it a party because it is really
I
sad.
didn't either.
Yeah,
Stop
of
myself.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But I feel like I've had like so many different types and so many different phases of eating disorders. And I feel like I hate calling it phases because it makes me sound like an angsty teenager when you go through like your goth phase. But really it started from childhood. Like when I would secret eat and binge eat, like my parents were going through a divorce when I was, I want to say 3 years old. I was pretty young. And at that time, like my dad was like very angry, obviously, and would throw things. And like I was a kid, I didn't know really what to do. And so I would like secret eat. So literally, I remember at like 3, 4 years old, like going into the refrigerator and like opening up like our deli meat drawer where we kept our deli meats. And like I'd be sneaking like little Kraft single cheeses, like the little cheese things that are like individually wrapped. I would like sneak that at like 3 p.m., like a normal snack time, but like I felt bad doing it because like my parents didn't know, my mom didn't know because they were like preoccupied with like the divorce and shit. And like that kind of started the cycle of like overeating and binge eating and secret eating because I viewed it as an act of shame because I felt ashamed, even though I was so young. I had really no idea, but I just knew I felt bad and I knew it was wrong, but like I didn't know why it was wrong because I didn't feel good doing it. And obviously that's like caused like me to be extremely overweight and obese like growing up, which you get teased so mercilessly by other kids. But when I was 16, I was like, got out of a really bad relationship and I wanted to lose weight. And like I said, did all the yo-yo dieting, which is disordered in its own way because you're just desperate for hope of losing weight. But then like I found out like my fitness pal. And so I like started eating less and tracking my food, started losing weight. And I was like, oh, I found the secret. Hallelujah. I found it. And, started losing weight and then started getting compliments. Right. And I was the type of girl that never got compliments, especially from boys or like noticing from boys because I was always just fat. And I became like addicted to losing weight and addicted to eating less because I was like, oh, the less I eat, the smaller I am, the more compliments. And so what started off as like a shameful thing became almost empowering and addictive, like almost like if you had like an alcohol addiction or a gambling addiction, like you wanted to see how small you could get and how little you could kind of get by. And obviously when you restrict for so long, like this has happened over the course of like a year and a half, 2 years, like eventually your body's like, bitch, like, and it snaps, right? And it's really easy in cases of anorexia, which is what I was going through, to have like 3 to 4 months stint of like a binge purge type of rebound because your body like finally like blows up and caves in because it's just like, listen, I need food, I need calories, I can't sustain this low level body fat and these low calories because it's just obviously unhealthy and unsustainable. And so usually like clinically you see 3 to 4 months of binge eating before like your body weight starts to increase and kind of your calories start to normalize where you can kind of like maintain and start to, dare I say, feel normal, have a normal like baseline of body fat and nutrition. But for me, like because I couldn't get a grasp on nutrition, I actually had this binge purge relationship for a year after like I had like no longer become anorexic. And like what was able to help me overcome that binge purge was kind of going back to anorexia, but this I believe it's called orthorexia, where it's like the being obsessed with only health food.
Healthy, yeah.
So yeah, right. So mentally, I went back to restriction, but because it was healthy foods only, it was better. It was
Yeah.
healthier. You know what I'm saying? And like honestly, that's kind of what spiraled into my veganism days, is thinking that it was healthy,
Same.
right?
Yeah.
And like that restriction of like not eating animal meats because for whatever reason that was magically unhealthy in my mind. Like if for whatever reason I was so disordered that it made sense. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And so really I've been through it all. It's like just secret eating and binge eating to anorexia to binge purge where I couldn't make myself throw up because I am traumatized by vomit. Like I hate doing it. It's so traumatic. So I would compensate with like hours of exercise. And then obviously like that spiraled into like an exercise addiction with orthorexia and being vegan and all this shit. And like it really wasn't until like a few years ago, like maybe 2 years ago, where I was like, this gotta end. And I was like, you just eat normal foods, like eat foods and don't assign moral value to it. And it's okay to eat meat. And ever since then, like I know bodybuilding can like kind of be disordered or marketed as disordered because we restrict our food and our
Yeah.
diet year round with like meal plans and macros and shit like that. But like my mindset is like, nah, it's food. Like it's here to help me live, perform, be an athlete, be a wife, be a cat mom, go walk outside. Like it enables me to live life. And that's where it's like, I hate using the word cured, but I feel recovered. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not food focused, I'm not obsessed. I feel healthy, right? I feel healthy. I interact in a healthy way. And that is kind of like a 10-year stint of, well, actually even more, like 27 years of having such a bad relationship with body image and food, where it's like almost 3 decades. It's like now I got it. You know what I'm saying? Like I finally freaking got it.
Yeah. I'm pretty similar too. Especially with like the vegan thing. And I think we all can agree that our veganism kind of stemmed from our eating disorder in some way. But obviously I started dancing, so ballet at a young age, 3 years old, and I had to get out of the ballet industry, ballet field, when I was 18, when I transferred home because of my eating disorder. So I think, I mean, with your eating disorder, obviously there was like trauma involved from your early childhood, and just with your relationship with your family and everything like that. And then mine was more like, obviously there's a huge prevalence of disordered eating, eating disorders in physique driven sports. So yes, bodybuilding included. But in my case, I was in ballet, and obviously the goal is to get as small as possible, to be, to move gracefully, to be lifted up in the air and all of that. And that is heavily pressed. So my eating disorder didn't get super bad until I'd say about probably freshman year of high school, when I started like go away in the summer and get more serious with my dancing. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to become a professional ballet dancer, dance in like New York City or the Atlanta Ballet or something like that. And I was just very serious about it. And I had these um instructors, dance teachers, whatever you want to call them. Um, and a couple of them made comments because I'm about 5 foot. I don't know. I measured myself the other week. I think I'm
Aren't you
five
five
foot
seven?
5'7", I
Yeah.
think. I
Yeah,
always
you're
thought
five
I was
seven.
taller, but I'm just naturally like wide. Like I have these wide ass clavicles. Like I look like a linebacker. And it's fine. It's cool. But I'm just naturally, I hate the word big boned, but I'm a large lady. And so being petite and small, it's just never been me. Like I just had to truly force myself. So that's really where my eating disorder stemmed from. And I was back in like the Tumblr days, where I would be, yeah,
Yeah.
that was toxic
Mhm.
because you would find all of these like diets, and if you eat this, do this many like crunches or jumping jacks or run this long to burn that off. And that's exactly how my mind was set up. And I just, kept eating less and less. And I would do similar things. Like, well, okay, getting ahead of myself, but I suffered from mainly anorexia. And
Mhm.
then my ballet teacher actually came to my parents' office one day, and it was like a whole intervention strategy to get me like in the conference room. And they were like, okay, you need to stop ballet. You need to go to an outpatient program. And I did. It's called the Renfrew program. And it's pretty renowned in I think just the US, but they have inpatient and outpatient. I went the outpatient route for a couple months, and I've just never, I don't know if you all went to therapy or saw a psychologist for yours. Yeah. Okay. So I saw many different therapists, many different psychologists for mine. And I I respect therapy, but I was never a good, I don't know, candidate, or I don't know. I always lied. I lied. I hide things from people, like because I didn't want to give up my control of my eating disorder. And I think that's what that was. So um I would get, like, my mom would pack me a muffin, I would hide it in my bag, and like I would just toss it. Like it was just like I would be hiding all of these things. And I don't really want to go too much into like how I would hide things, because I think that can be a little triggering for some people.
Sure.
But point is, therapy didn't utilize it to its benefit at all. But then I decided to kind of shift gears a little bit because I did want to continue ballet. And I think my eating disorder kind of spiraled into more of the bulimia route, where I would actually purge. Um, and I kept up with ballet. And I guess since I went from anorexia to bulimia physically, I think I looked healthier
Yep.
in my parents' eyes, because I was eating in their eyes, you know. Um, and so they were like, okay, we're cool with you continuing ballet. I decided to transfer or go away for college. Sorry. My freshman year, I went to UNCSA, which is an art school in North Carolina, and I was majoring in classical ballet. And I started like just doing like auditions for bigger companies and things. And the pressure was really on me. So I think my eating disorder definitely spiraled there as well. And I was away from home, so I had all the control that I wanted. Um, and I think something in my mind flipped. I was like, shit, if I continue like this, I'm honestly gonna die.
Mhm.
Um, because I just kept having little like flashbacks to when I think I was 15 or 16. I was hospitalized over Christmas because of my eating disorder. And I just felt like such a burden for my family,
Yep.
because it's over the Christmas holiday and everybody was concerned about me, and I hated it. So I think I came to the realization when I was away. I was like, I can't continue this. So I made the decision to transfer home, and that's when I kind of started getting into the gym.
Yep.
And I transferred to a local liberal arts college, and I started exercise science. Well, I began in like health psych, and I was
Yep.
like, oh, I want to be a therapist for people who struggle like me. Then I
Yeah.
was like, I hate this. I can't do this. I can't deal with people's problems. I can't even deal with my own. So I transferred to the exercise phys kind of route. And then I started getting into the gym. And of course, I started out with like cardio bunny and all of that. Um, and yeah, I had my little veganism stage. That was kind of during my ballet years, though.
Yeah.
And I took it a step further, the raw vegan. But I think that was like, part of my eating disorder, like cutting out certain food groups, gaining that control. And
Mhm.
so I was like, ooh, vegan? Nah, I'm just not going to cook my food. I'm going to eat literally nuts and seeds and vegetable. Like, I don't know how I did it. And I
I didn't
have
even
my
know.
Instagram, and you guys know that. My
Yeah.
Rawsome Vegan
Yeah.
Instagram.
You
Yeah,
were
it's
tiny.
still up
Like
there.
you were just tiny, tiny, tiny. What
Very
is
tiny.
incredible to me in like a sad way, but also like in a good way. So I'm gonna take a roundabout detour here.
Yeah.
It's like you and I, exact same age,
Hmm.
Midwest girls, and like the fact that we went through that shit together, even though we were apart. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, I think that's really cool in one way because it's like, you know, because when you're in these dark moments, you think you are the only person suffering,
Yeah.
right? And going back to Tumblr, I would say thousands of photos
Oh
of
my God. Yeah.
workouts, thigh gaps, arms that are as
Thigh gaps. Fucking
thigh
thigh
gaps, dude.
gaps.
I mean, like, literally, I literally have still had the flash drive of all of my files that I saved from Tumblr because whenever I'm having like self-doubt, I remind myself of where I came from. And
Hmm.
like it's no longer a trigger, it's a reminder of being like, dude, you've come such a fucking far way. Like, don't give
Hmm.
up now. And I still do that
Yeah.
shit today. But like the fact that we are both from the Midwest, both 5'7", both, you know, blonde hair, like you know what I'm saying? Like that for me is hopeful because we
Yeah.
can still come together and talk about our experiences to
Hmm.
help someone else. And then like I don't know what it is, but man, when you mention just like being a burden to your family, like I remember
Hmm.
having to go to therapy and my family was not really well to do. We were like lower middle class. And like I
Hmm.
remember asking for therapy because I felt so broken after this one particular binge where I thought I was gonna die. Like I'm not trying to be dramatic, but like after this one binge, I was having such severe heart palpitations and my
Yeah.
stomach hurt so bad. I thought I was literally going to blow up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I asked my mom to go to therapy, and this therapist was not helpful whatsoever. And I don't want to dog therapy, but this therapist was not for me. But like, I think, you know, these types of clinics and stuff like that can be so helpful for some people, but at the same time, like everyone heals and recovers in a different way. And so I
Hmm.
think, you know, going to either outpatient therapy or finding a therapist or a psychologist, like there are different ways for healing and recovery, and you just kind of have to figure that out for yourself. Easier said than done, but I guess there's no right or wrong way to recover as long as you
No.
don't give up.
Mm-mm. Yeah, yeah. His outpatient for me was a very triggering experience. I did not like it. That's
Mhm.
why I lied. I just wanted to get out of there because it was like an hour and a half drive for my dad and I. I would get in the car with him. We would travel an hour and a half. The program was 3 hours long, an hour and a half home, wake up, go to school like I was a normal person. And it was just
Wow.
it was so hard mentally, and I couldn't do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, with my eating disorder, I was similar, and I think all three of us, we had different, mm, I don't like the word phase either. Yeah. But different, like I struggle with anorexia and bulimia, and then the restriction with veganism.
Mhm.
And then in my bodybuilding career, and I haven't been 100% open about this, but I have definitely struggled. That's why I had to, pull out of my prep in 2020, was because my eating disorder got so bad. I was kind of suffering from binging and purging during that. And my mom realized like I was struggling. And it was like my birthday when I pulled out of my prep in 2020. And she actually like called and she like surprised me. She flew down because she knew she didn't want me to compete anymore. She was like, you need to stop. You need to reevaluate where your headspace is. And
Mhm.
I thank her every freaking day for that because I love bodybuilding and it had nothing to do with the sport.
Mhm.
It was just mentally, I was just not recovered, wasn't, I hate like healed and all of that, but
Yeah.
I just wasn't there. And, I've struggled since 2020. I had my last episode or relapse, whatever you want to call it. I remember the day exactly. It was last year. It was June. Oh my gosh, it was June 15th, 2022. That was the last time. So over a year now. So that's really awesome for me. And I feel super healthy and hopeful for this next prep. So yeah.
Good. No. Well, we're excited for you for sure. And I'm glad that it is a year since you've relapsed, because I know relapsing
Yeah.
is so easy to do. And I want to
Mhm.
talk about kind of my struggle with, even undergoing free meals and how like I struggle with that. But I do want Laura to share kind of
Yes,
her
Laura,
story with us, because
please, please.
she has her own journey with it. And honestly, it's so unique in my opinion that I think it definitely is worth listening up.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of similar reoccurrences to the both of you. I was a competitive gymnast. I started
Mhm.
gymnastics at like age 4, and I did it all the way until junior year of high school, which I was then kicked off the gymnastics team. We'll circle back a little bit for that. But for me, it was always a control thing for when I felt like my life was kind of going in multiple directions at once and not feeling like I had direction. And I've always been a high anxiety person. I've always, when it comes time to like making big decisions, really struggled with that and almost like freeze. And my eating disorder was something to like freeze myself and bury myself with and not deal with everything else that I needed to give attention to. And so my first like really bad episode, I was 17, I was a junior in high school, and I had gotten asked to go to prom with a guy that was like older than me or whatever. And I wasn't allowed to go. So I started my lunch money so I was allowed to go. And it was around the same time that I had just stopped doing club gymnastics, which was like 6 days a week, 5 hours a day, competing on the days that I was off. I never really had your normal childhood. I never drank. I've never been drunk in my life. I never partied. I never did any of that. I was so serious with competitive gymnastics that like I never had time. And so then once I got into high school and started to have like activities with friends that were like co-ed and things like that, I was like, I want this. And, I started going to get pizza after school with friends and eating in the cafeteria that like I normally wouldn't have done before because like that wasn't allowed. And I started gaining a decent amount of weight. One, it's also a like shifting transition for puberty because like I was 17, I hadn't even gotten a period yet because I was still so overtraining and so everything else that, like I was definitely behind with maturing. So then I had a friend say to me as I was talking one day, I'm like, I kind of feel like different, like my clothes don't fit. And she's like, yeah, you kind of got a little chubby. Take this Adderall. And I was like, oh,
See.
what's Adderall do? Little did I know. So like then, I'm taking Adderall more and not eating because I'm not hungry and like literally having same thing like you were saying, like heart palpitations because it's like taking crack. Like if you don't need it, and I was overdoing it. I was overtaking it. And the next thing I know, I lost like 30 pounds in the matter of a month. And then I have people tattling on me, telling my gymnastics coaches that I'm on drugs. And I was so embarrassed that I was just like, fuck this, I quit. Like, I'm not doing this. And my parents, obviously, at that point got wind of, I was literally down 30 pounds in the matter of a month. I was like maybe 83 pounds. And I started doing outpatient at a hospital and same type of thing. I would go, I would sit there, I would lie. I would be like, no, everything's fine. I'm eating this, I'm eating that. I'm taking the money that my mom is giving me and buying lunch. Literally, I bought a fucking prom dress because I saved every single penny they gave me so I could go to the prom that I wasn't allowed to go to. And I always just kept everything from everyone. And then eventually it turned into the same thing like you guys were saying, a big family dispute. I have an older brother who's almost 5 years older than I am, who literally one day had me by the throat against a wall being like, you're ruining our family. Fucking stop. Because one of my parents wanted me to go to outpatient. My other parent was fighting for me to stay because I'm the baby and they didn't want to see the baby go and whatever else, and felt like one didn't know what to do with me. And the way of like caring is kind of dealing with, and the other one was more nurturing than the other, and neither was wrong. It was just a different affection from a parent, and that caused them to constantly fight. And then I was the reason for it. So I kind of got my head out of my ass, pulled my shit together, and decided that I wanted to move forward and not stay in this position, and started like almost having like childlike tendencies, like wanted to spend more time with my parents. Like instead of a Friday night, like with my friends, I'd stay in and hang out with my parents, like needing that like attention and to feel secure and stuff like that. Eventually I ended up starting to like slowly gained the weight back, and honestly was from spending a lot of time with my mom. And I remember being like, Mom, how much are you eating? Should I have the same amount of bites? Like to the point like I didn't know how to think for myself at all.
Yeah.
Then I was good for a little while. My junior year of college, I had a boyfriend who committed suicide while we were together. And that was the second major relapse I had that one almost took my life. And I was like it didn't hit me immediately. It was very strange. Like I felt very guilty for it for a long time because it was like the first night I had gone out with him with my friends. We were at a bar. I had never drank. It was just not my thing. He was wasted and I was pissed. So I left and him and his friends went home and it ended up, they were on drugs. I didn't know. He shot himself in the head that night. And like for the longest time, like I want to say the first year after he died, I was like, if I had not left, this never would have happened. This is totally my fault. And I couldn't see past that. And I was traumatized and we weren't even together that long. It was just like the whole situation of it. And I was would have been going into my last year of college. And it was, my parents took me on vacation. They were like, you need to either come home and change your life, or we're sending you to rehab and you are not having an option of this. Cause like, it was to the point, like the same type of thing. I lost an extreme amount of weight. I was maybe 80 pounds. My hair was falling out. I was constantly having like fractures and breaks and all of this injuries all of the time. And again, I was like so against therapy. And truthfully now, if I could go back to that time, I wish that I had found some type of group or something that was other girls that had been through this. And I think that is probably the disconnect that you guys have, that I felt too, even when I went at 17 for therapy, is you want to speak with somebody that has been in your shoes because you do feel like no one fucking gets it.
Yep.
And I think that if they had a better way, and you know what, most therapists probably have had some type of situation, but when you enter their office and you're having your consults, they don't talk about themselves.
Yep.
But I think that if they had, I would be a lot more open, because you are so strong-minded in the fact that like, you just don't get it. You don't get how I feel. You don't get what I'm going through. And they probably do, because nobody else would want to do that just for shit. It's usually because you have some type of connection to it. And since then, at 23, it took me about a year to like fully get better of like being to a healthy weight and finally starting to see like this wasn't my fault. This was going to happen either way, and having more direction. And again, same type of thing. I was like almost graduating college and I still didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do. And I was good for a while. And this is honestly the first I'm actually admitting this. My most recent wasn't a full-blown relapse, but starting to be, was during COVID, because I was like not working, kind of blacklisted by my family because I was the only one that wasn't vaccinated. And I had just had a new niece born that I wasn't allowed to touch or see or go near. I felt very alone, and, it was a really hard time for me. I lost like basically everything I had for a business. And shortly after was when I met up with Jeff. But I mean, everything I did was in person. Yep. All of my online clients came from in person, that I was teaching at a yoga studio and personal training. And I had the meal prep company too. And nobody wanted food from anybody either, because, cross contamination, you can get sick. So like, I literally lost everything. I had a few clients that I stayed training throughout, and thank God that they were doing like unemployment, because like, I was at such a low, like, and I knew I was slipping, and more so from depression though than anything. And it was like low appetite, just, it wasn't myself. And that was also when I started having the ruptured implant that I had to remove, that then friggin' bottomed out, that then I put in the stratus and I was allergic to. So like I had 5 surgeries. I had like 5 surgeries in the matter of 2 years. And that was also when my health issues really started to exacerbate. And I just felt like I could not catch a break. And I saw it coming. And I actually told my family that I saw it coming and that I needed their support. So it was never that I went and saw help and things like that, but like they were very on me. They knew about it. The guy I was dating at the time knew about it. So like I basically confessed and was like, you need to just like be there. Don't let me fall into this, because I know that I'm doing it.
Yeah. I mean, like there are really no words to just kind of sum up like what each of us have gone through. Like it is trauma in our own unique ways. And even though we had different kind of like origin stories, we still have very, very, very similar conclusions that we still struggle from this day. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like I feel so secure tracking macros, but when I have a free meal, like I actually have to ask Eric, and Eric can vouch for this. I'll be like, am I eating too much? Because whenever I eat that's deemed off plan, even though it's factored into my plan, but I'm not tracking the macros, I'm like, I don't know if this is a binge or not. Right. Because like for me, like because there was so much chaos and that I found structure in tracking and restricting and controlling that when I am not doing all of those things, it's like, is this normal? Is it normal to like enjoy a dessert that I'm not tracking? Is this normal to experience like this level of fullness, but it is a binge? Like I literally had to have this conversation so I can teach myself that like, hey, like going out and eating a meal that is not tracked is normal. It is normal to have periods of overeating, but that does not necessarily mean you are binging, right? And for me, it's like I still have those conversations. So again, I can understand. I don't know if you guys experience that at all or not.
Yeah, that's something like I had to be very straight up and honest with Tar. Obviously the bulk of the beginning of our relationship, it was pretty long distance, and he was gone in Australia for like 3 months, so that was fun. But that was something that I had to stress with him were my like food struggles and just my mindset around it all. And actually having him here and being able to, like, I'm not sure if you guys kind of are the same way, but I know I'm in a very healthy space with food and how I eat, but there's still some trigger foods, whatever you want to call them, that I can't seem to have in the house. So things like bread, like almond butter, just nut butter in general, I just have a weird kind of relationship with still, and still no nut butter in the house. But like this past like few weeks that he's been here, like I've had bread and I've felt very confident and fine with it. And having him just physically present, I felt a lot safer around that food. So there's still things like I'm not 100% like I'm very honest with my clients, my athletes. Like I struggle as well, and I make sure that I am very open and honest with them. So when they struggle, they feel okay to be vulnerable with me, to open up to me, to communicate with me when they are. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important for our relationships and for our coaching.
For me, it's cereal. Like I can buy Eric Reese
Like 4
Puffs.
boxes.
Yeah, like I see that and I'm like, good for her. But like for me, it's cereal. Like I go down the cereal aisle and I'm like, I know I would enjoy eating this, but at the same time, like that for me was such a binge food where
Yeah.
like we're talking like the family value size, like the one that
Yeah.
has 15 servings or whatever, easy on top of like all the other food I would binge on. And it's like, I know I would have the self-control now, but like for me, for whatever reason, I'm not willing to like even try like 1 or 2 servings, like a normal freaking portion, because it's just like, what if? There's always like that
No,
fear in the
yeah.
back of your mind. It's like, what if?
That's how I am with like my nut butter and bread. Like those are the things that I would gravitate towards because they're still healthy, but I
Yeah.
would overeat. I would binge on them.
Mhm.
Um, that is his cereal, but I have been eating it. But that's another thing. Like for me, like personally, if I was alone in this house and I had boxes of cereal in the fridge, they would all be gone. Like I just can't do that. Yeah. But
Mhm.
This is honestly the first prep I've ever done. And I know I've like briefly mentioned this to you guys before too, but like I don't know what changed, but usually around this time that I'm a couple weeks out is really triggering for me, being super lean and thinking about the fact that the show is almost ending and I want to keep going.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've ever prepped that I have not felt like that. And it's I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of the support of Josh and like having a boyfriend who's also a bodybuilder, but who's also very supportive and like talking about, like off season together and like wanting to make all of these positive changes and like things to look forward to doing together, I think is also helpful. But it's the first time that I haven't like woken up in the middle of the night and ate something and like not remember doing it and wake up in the morning and like, what the fuck did I do? And like over cardio because of it. And it's been the most smooth emotionally and mental prep I have ever done. And I was talking to a client this morning who's actually a therapist,
mhm.
and she had asked me about it because I've told her this in the past, and I told her that before I even started this prep. She's like, so how are you doing? And I was like, honestly, I don't know why. I don't know why I'm fine. And I don't know if it's just like it's been enough time that I feel like I've done things in this prep I could have never done before. I have never taken days off of cardio before. I would have even thought about it. I've never increased my food like towards an end of a prep. That would have been like you're speaking another language. No fucking way.
Yeah.
And I've
I
just removed the emotion from it and just did what I had to do.
yeah, and I honestly like I want to say like for you and for myself and you, Ash, like it's in us to kind of get to this point, but I also think it is our support, our
Yeah.
relationships, because Tara has made like such a huge impact on my mental health and everything around just training and food and everything like that. And I'm sure like Josh has as well for
But yeah,
you.
he totally
So
changed my training.
mhm.
That to like pull it back. And at
Yeah,
first I was
yeah.
kicking and screaming,
I
was like,
remember,
no,
yeah.
I'm doing this. And I did. And here we go.
Yeah. So our support is huge, and
I
that's
think
what
those
we
are
have to be
some
for our clients. So
Oh yeah, I think those are some things where it's like some warning signs or some warning factors that we can dive
yeah.
into. It's like
Hmm.
when your life is out of control, there
Hmm.
are like only so many things you can control in your life, and that's how you move your body and what you eat and how you eat, and then also kind of like your actions, right? And so
Hmm.
if there are so many things outside of your control, like you tend to want to nitpick, at least for me and my personalities, I want to nitpick things and fine tune things and tinker with things. And I coped with food and exercise for my security and my comfort. And then also it stems from loneliness, right? My parents were going through a divorce. So what did I do? I ate in secret because food is comforting for a lot of people, and especially when you're a child, and even when you're an adult, food is comfort, right? Because it is a sign of security, and in some cases, if you're not too careful, a sign of emotional security because you are
Hmm.
receiving like, your happy, serotonin, your dopamine, all that like good,
Yeah.
happy feelings. And so when life is chaotic and you feel like your life is spiraling out of control, you resort to comfort and security by controlling these things. And for a lot of people, it is their food and how they move their body,
Hmm.
and they make sure that their actions reflect that, and that can be rewarding. And then when you are stemming from loneliness, whether you're a child or maybe you're alone during COVID, or you just feel alone because you're working from home all the time and you not really are interacting with people in person, it can feel very, very isolating. And so when you finally have that like support system of either your family or a partner or even just friends that you feel vulnerable enough with to be honest that you're struggling, like that can make all the difference in the world when it comes to starting to heal and starting to recover and overcome these inner demons.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think when it comes to like the kind of triggers of things to look out for in clients, I know there's like a bunch of different ones. Common ones that I see personally that pop up are like they have, usually it's like they come to me with them and I help them kind of, fix that, because a huge one is like the rigid rules around food. So many people group them into good versus bad, allowed versus forbidden. And honestly, I think like this is very common still to this day. It used to be like, no fat, no carbs, no sugar, but now it's like a lot of people are like no dairy, no gluten, no nightshades, no this, no that, because they see all this like functional nutrition stuff. And while yes, like and like elimination style diets to fix functional issues are important for like people with like autoimmune conditions or certain gut issues that we need to deal with. But I feel like these Gen Pop people who have nothing wrong with them, they just need to literally develop these healthy eating habits, are
Mhm.
seeing all this stuff on Instagram and they're like, oh, I can't have dairy, I can't have gluten, I can't have artificial sweeteners and this and that and that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's kind of like orthorexia. It's like our society is turning into that at the same time.
I actually think you're starting to see a lot of issues with functional
Mhm.
approaches for these
Turning
type of
into like disordered
yes,
eating. Hmm.
Mhm.
in or rehashing people that
100%.
have had past
Hmm.
eating disorders. I've seen several people talking
Hmm.
about this, that they are currently experiencing gut
Hmm.
issues and then having such restriction although they're trying to eradicate, bacteria and whatever else,
Yeah.
their mental health is going to such shit because they're being so overly restricted that it's not causing anything beneficial for them. And I've had a few clients like this that I've literally been like, here's a food list, don't weigh your shit, here's some eyeball portions, we're going to keep minimal amounts of this amount of like, FODMAPs or whatever it is. Eat healthy, whole
Yeah.
food, occasionally have things that are processed, and like dumbing it down, or not, but like pulling back
Simplifying it. Yeah.
all the rules that you're hearing
Mhm.
has reduced so much stress, and I've seen way better results not having it so structured.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I've had like a few girls reach out who are on these very rigid like functional programs right now. Uh and I think a lot of it could be fixed if they tackle the root, which is more so like stress.
Always.
And these protocols with like 20, 30 different supplements, removing all of these low FODMAPs, doing this, that, intermittent fasting, keto, doing all these like autophagy things. It's like, holy shit, back off, like get the basics. No, we need to fix this. The head, I'm pointing at my head, people.
Yeah.
First, like,
Yeah, and that's like a big problem is like people think that eating disorder is like a body type or a look. Like, oh, if she's binging, she must be fat. Or if she's like orthorexic, she or an anorexic, she has to be like super, super skinny. And like it just kind of depends on where they're at in their journey. You know what I'm saying? But even then, it's not a body, it's not a look per se, it's a mental state. It's what is
Yeah.
your relationship with yourself? What is your relationship with your food and your body? And how are you interacting with those areas? Because like I looked perfectly healthy when I first started to like show the signs of anorexia. But obviously, after a year of restriction, that's when you lose like half your fucking body weight. And that's when you like get deep in the trenches where it's like you do probably need that outpatient therapy or that inpatient therapy. And so rather than focusing on like, what you look like in terms of trying to identify it, it's like thinking and having those really difficult conversations with yourself, being like, what is my thoughts and perception around the foods that I eat? Am I assigning a moral value to it? Because like, I don't know about you, but like I would have eaten a spider, which I'm not a huge fan of, over eating like a bagel when I was deep in my anorexia because bagels were bad. They were high in carbs, they had fat, and carbs are bad and gluten is bad. And it's like I'm assigning moral value to it when in reality, like, okay, the bagel didn't kill somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like it didn't like hold up at a bank and shoot somebody. Like, no, it's just a bagel. You know what I'm saying? So really thinking about like, are you assigning a moral compass, a moral value to your food? If the scale goes up, are you good? Are you bad? Or is it just like a phenomenon that happens? Like, if you feel bloated or whatever because your hormones are fluctuating or you're sick or whatever, like, are you good? Are you bad? Because like I feel like a lot of people assign like good and bad and ideal and optimal and all these like other arbitrary adjectives that they make sense of mentally, when in reality it is like it just is like food just is. It is nourishment, it is calories, it is being. And that's something like
I pull the scale the second I see something like that, especially with a client. Like, I don't need it. Show me your pictures, keep them consistent. If I feel like it's going to be a mental issue for you, get rid of it.
Yeah. And I think on social media, it's just so black and white. It's like, oh, like there's like the self-love like group, and then there's like the, I don't know what to call the other side, but
it's like
it's just like,
aggression. It's like aggression almost.
yeah,
There's no like middle ground to it.
no.
Because I think that I'm trying to like deliver this correctly. Like acceptance is what's important, but also keeping health in the forefront of that is also important.
Yeah.
So finding where your middle ground is, including both of those, is really the goal that I think people are kind of going too far one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, like, the reason why it's not shown on social media is it's not sexy.
I was gonna say that.
It's like not gonna like doing
It's not
what
gonna hit
makes
you the like.
sense doesn't usually sell, even though that's what you need to be doing because it makes sense and it works. But like doing like the basics and the fundamentals before like doing these complex protocols, whether you're like enhanced or natural, or maybe you have SIBO or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not sexy to be like, hey, sleep 7 to 8 hours, drink, 2-3 liters of water a day, like eat, colorful fruits and vegetables and lean meats and, quick digesting carbs and slow digesting carbs. So, you can either train better or, keep your blood glucose stable. Like all of these things, like they're they're so simple and it makes sense. But yeah, it's like, how do you market that in a sexy way? It's almost like that one scene in Parks and Rec where they're trying to like sexify kale to get people to eat kale because like no one wants to eat it because it's like it's fucking kale. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But it's like you make it sexy, you get like hot models, both male and female, and you're like, you know what? Let me get some dino kale. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's true. And it's just not what sells on social media. Like I'll post a client transformation, like sure, like her starting position, like she looks great, I think. And then on the other side, like she's not completely shredded, but mentally we've tackled the basics. She's freaking sleeping. She knows how to interpret her body's internal signs. Like she understands what hunger is now. She understands how to freaking chew her food thoroughly. Like these are wins. And people don't realize that. They're just like, they want to see like before and after, like shredded and just
Mhm.
crazy. And I'm just like, that's not realistic. That's not what is going to be sustainable or healthy. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I get in my head being like a coach, like I'm like, oh, this isn't gonna do well. Like, should I still post it? And then I'm like, fuck it, yeah, I'm gonna post it. Like, I'm proud as shit as of my clients. Like,
Mhm.
and yeah, and I
I
think
think
like our
that,
yeah,
good. No, I was
I
gonna
was
say,
just saying like our clients get tied up like in that too. That's what they see and that's what they expect, and then they're like, shit, like they compare themselves to these crazy transformations, and I'm like, yeah, it sucks. It's a bummer, but hopefully we can change things in the industry for sure.
that's what I was starting to say too, like being able to highlight stuff like that and showing that the importance of it and the wins and kind of making that be recognized, maybe if it wasn't, I think is
Hmm.
stepping in the right direction to kind of get at least what we have power over in the industry to be noticed.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. I agree.
For sure. I mean, if more coaches show their success with the basics and like show the before and afters and show like the conversations with their athletes, like, hey, I got my period back, or hey, I feel better, or hey, like,
Hmm.
I PR'd this, and like shift the narrative away from always being compared to being like contest prep stage lean to like health. I think
Yeah,
that's kind of like the step in the right direction where it's like, oh my God, what did you do? Keto? And it's like, no, I, you know, ate a balanced meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I had a snack, and I go on walks with my husband, or I walk my dog, or I go to the gym 3-4 times a week, and I live my life. I do my hobbies. Like I still bake, and I still do a good job at work. It's like I am a person. And
yeah,
like once you get enough people like doing what makes sense, and like it's like the little ripple effect. It's like you one person that they do that what makes sense, they tell other people, and it's like then people start to listen, because like obviously if it sounds too good to be true, maybe it is, but also like because of all of the essentially the trauma that the fitness world has kind of caused with like keto, Atkins, low carb, high carb, like whatever,
mhm,
like everyone is scared to do like the basics, because like there's no book on doing something simple. It's like, well, what am I missing? What's the secret? And the secret is simplicity.
honestly, yeah.
I think we
Mhm.
all can attest to that. It's like we all got better when we stopped like trying to control every little facet and stop seeing things as like black and white, good and bad. And we just started to like live our lives and be more than just like numbers, right? Be
Mhm.
numbers on the scale, numbers on the food scale, like counting macros, all that stuff. And yes, while we still do these things because we are bodybuilders, and that is
Yeah, we
something
have.
that is part
Mhm.
of the sport to some degree, especially because we have coaches,
Mhm.
it's our mindset around it. It's like if I weigh out 275 grams of white rice, I'm not good or bad if it's like 274, 276. Like
Yeah.
it's just okay, well, I'm not gonna pick up 1 grain of rice. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really
Mhm.
not that big of a deal. What the big of the deal is your perception of that
Mhm.
whole situation.
100%.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But damn. I know this was hard, guys. I know this was a hard podcast, and like it's not fun to like go rooting through like your memories that you kind of do want to repress to some extent. But I am really proud of us for being vulnerable and sharing our experiences, but also like providing value in the context of, hey, these are some warning signs that you're being too overly focused on food, your body, your relationship with like those two items. And these are some things that like we did that kind of helped us, but also like understanding that we still struggle from day to day with like what is normal due
Yeah.
to our history with our complications of food and body image and stuff like that.
And I think if you're going to hire a coach, it can be hard to be vulnerable, but it's going to be pivotal in your success with that coach if you can be open and know that that coach is not going to judge you. I make that known like on our consultation call, because it's so important to me. I never want someone to struggle in silence.
Mhm.
And you hear so many like just horror stories of, oh, this coach belittled me or talked down on me because I didn't follow protocols to a T.
Called me a
And I'm just
loser.
like, that's, yeah, I could never do that to a client.
Unacceptable.
Mm-mm. So, I mean, just making sure that you do your research with the coach that you want to go with,
Mhm.
making sure that you are comfortable with them is going to be very important.
Yeah, and like ask their athletes.
Honestly,
At the
honestly.
end of the day, people come to coaches because they want to be cared for in some way, shape, or form. And that's our job to deliver that.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a customer service job, and while it is a lot different than like being a plumber and contracting, like in the same way that like it is mixing a service with the customer, and empathy and relatability is part of that as a coach.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand that like we are all humans, we make mistakes, we don't know everything, we're learning both as coaches and athletes, but at the end of the day it's the teamwork and the consistent effort to try your best and to find what works for you. That's what I want to encourage like the listeners, especially because like one, you're not broken. And if anyone makes you feel like you were broken, I would challenge that. I would challenge the fuck out of that like belief or that phrase, because like if you view that you were broken, you will never heal, right? Like I think we all went through the period where we felt like we were broken, but when we realized that like we're really not, we're just like navigating life, we're just being human, you feel a lot better and you feel hopeful, right? And
Yeah.
hope is frail, but it's difficult to break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we can't identify as what we are struggling with,
Mhm.
like you can't say like you have anxiety or I have anxiety, I have this, so I can't do this and all of that. You have to break free from identifying as what you're struggling with. And I'm sure you'll recover from it for sure.
Mhm. Any final thoughts, ladies?
This is a good one.
This was, yeah.
It was
I
good. It
mean,
was heavy,
I
but it was good.
definitely I definitely withhold some things still because like you said, we're trying to like keep it, in closed doors, but I think this was really important. I think it's good to share with our listeners that, they're not alone. Nobody is.
Mhm.
Nobody
There's
should feel
always
like
somebody out there.
Mhm. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Ladies,
Definitely
it's great
happy we
talking
did
with
this
you
one.
reach
today.
out. So
Yes.
reach out if you are in a position that you need somebody, to any of us.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, like just DM us. I mean, just be
Honestly.
like, hey, like I resonated with you. I feel you. Like I'm still going through that. Like we'd be happy to
Yeah.
just chat, whether it's about our experience. Maybe we can like offer you some perspective. Like we don't want to like what I don't want people to do is like, oh, I want to hire them as my coach because they'll fix my eating disorder. Because like,
Yeah.
no, we're not qualified to do that. However,
Mhm.
what I have done and I've seen a lot of success with is working with a therapist and
Yeah.
letting us know what your therapist is saying. Because obviously, if we're like
Mhm.
tracking macros and your therapist is like, hey, macros is a trigger for you, it's like, okay, well, guess what? Like, fuck
Yeah.
macros, like fuck a macro.
Yeah.
Flex Planet is.
Flex plan it is, right? Or portion
100%.
control, or
Yeah.
just eat real foods and be happy and go frolic in the forest. Because that honestly, that's what we all need to do is we need to be happy and frolic in the fucking forest.
Yeah, there we go. But for real, like my DM is always open. I love freaking talking to people in there. Like people are always surprised. They're just like, "Oh my God, you responded." I'm like, "The fuck? Yeah, I did. Like I'm a human."
That
I
was
get
me when I
off
first
on
reached out
like
to you.
being able to support people. I don't
Dude, I was
know.
like scared as fuck to reach out to you initially when I had you on my Holding Center podcast. I was like, I'm reaching out to Dr. IFBB Pro Megan Santa Barbara. Will she notice me? Notice me, senpai? And you were like the chillest bitch. I was like, oh my
I'm
God, this is like
legit
a
like
person.
nobody. Yeah, no, I'm so human. I just love interacting with people. So
Mm-hmm.
I encourage it.
Yeah.
Slide into my DMs. Do it.
Do it.